you have a particular British turn of phrase that you love, or that you've been surprised by and you had to ask somebody, what did they say?
I mean, tickety-boo, that's pretty... I haven't been able to sneak that into my American vocabulary. That'd be good.
Today we're uncovering the surprising American origins of 6 expressions everyone thinks are so British. And let's start with tickety-boo. If you don't know tickety-boo, it just means that's fine, that's totally acceptable, that's great. So for example, darling, the vicar's coming for tea and I made some cucumber sandwiches and ginger ale. Oh, tickety-boo. It does sound like something that Mary Poppins might say. Although it's unclear whether the phrase is British or American in origin, we do know that it became popular in the US long before it gained traction in the UK. There are lots of theories as to where it comes from. Some say it was originally a slang phrase used by the British Navy or the RAF. Other word historians say that it's a corruption of the Hindi phrase tickety-boo.
Tickety-boo.
It's all right, sir. And I must admit, I'm skeptical of this. I think that it's just a coincidence. It's like those who say that okay is from an American Indian word, okay. It isn't. When I made a video about the history of the word ain't, link up here, there were quite a few comments saying with great conviction that it must derive from the Hebrew word ain, meaning ain't.
Ain.
No, it's just a coincidence. In Japanese, the word name is namae.
Namae.
The words are unrelated. Put your linguistic coincidences in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Another theory that sounds much more plausible to me is that it's simply a humorous corruption of 62. We're in room 62. Tickety-boo. Now, how did the word become so popular in Britain? Well, I have a theory, and it's because of bingo. Bingo is a hugely popular game in Britain, and in the game, each number has a nickname. Rise and shine, 29. Time for tea, 83. Tickety-boo, 62. Bingo! Somehow tickety-boo got chosen as 62 as the bingo number, and as bingo was so popular in Britain, it got fixed in the popular imagination. Meanwhile, in America, the word faded into obscurity. If you're interested in the history of the English language, then you'll find my newsletter, Tickety-boo. It's free. Link in the description.
5.
Bob's your uncle.
Line it with makeshift punji sticks made from sharpened toothbrushes. The guard falls in, Bob's your uncle, we escape. What do you think?
If you don't know Bob's your uncle, it just means it's easy to achieve. There you are. The French might say, et voila. Just mix the ingredients, pop it in the oven for 20 minutes, and Bob's your uncle, a perfect victorious sponge every time. A popular origin story claims that it comes from British Prime Minister Robert Bob Cecil, who in 1887 appointed his nephew Alpha Balfour as Chief Secretary for Ireland, even though Balfour had no experience. People at the time joked that Balfour's success was simply because Bob's your uncle, and it's been a popular British expression ever since. But as you can see from the graph, this can't be the origin. Balfour was around in the 1880s, but the expression wasn't used until the 1940s, so we have to look elsewhere for the origin. And I was eager to discover the truth, so I went down the rabbit hole of internet research, and I was astonished to find that yes, it's American. Let me explain. And in order to explain, I need to talk about another expression before you can say Jack Robinson. Now this one is British, by the way, and if you don't know this expression, it's just a humorous way of saying very quickly, I said I was hungry, and before I could say Jack Robinson, she had prepared a 3-course meal. Now, the Brits tend only to use this one expression, this overworked guy, Jack Robinson. But in America, the land of the free, the land of opportunity and 1,000 varieties of breakfast cereal, they have had over the years a number of names instead of our Jack Robinson. So you could say, before you can say George Washington, it'll be ready before you can say George Washington, faster than you can say Jack Rabbit, and you've guessed it, before you can say Bob's your uncle. Here's the earliest example I could find. It's from a 1937 biography of an American football coach called Zupke of Illinois. Minnesota began to throw passes. Before you can say Bob's your uncle, the Gophers scored. The expression moved across the Atlantic, and here's an example from the movie 101 Dalmatians in 1961.
Here, grab a torch. We'll run 'em down before you can say Bob's your uncle.
When you're with Mary Poppins, suddenly you're in places you never dreamed of. And quick as you can say, Bob's your uncle, the most unusual things begin to happen.
The expression was shortened to just Bob's your uncle, and the meaning slightly altered from something quick to something quick and successful, and it was adopted by the British. In Britain it thrived. Meanwhile, it became more or less obsolete in America.
4.
The great British stiff upper lip that guided us to glory at the peaks of our empire and through the darkest days huddled in air raid shelters in the Second World War.
Could you have an expression that sums up the British character more succinctly than a stiff upper lip? What it means is that however difficult or stressful the situation is, you should always remain calm. It embodies everything you expect from an English gentleman. Emotional restraint and perseverance in the face of adversity. For example, I say, old chap, the mother-in-law is coming to stay for a month. I'm rather afraid I'll miss the polo match at Eastbourne this year. Never mind, old bean. Keep a stiff upper lip. Except, yes, you guessed it, it's actually an American expression. The first written reference to it can be found in the Massachusetts Spy in 1815, and it appears in Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe in 1852. Well, goodbye, Uncle Tom. Keep a stiff upper lip, said George.
3.
The bee's knees, which means the absolute best, bloody brilliant, the creme de la creme. Now, I don't know why this one keeps cropping up on lists of typically British idioms.
5 British English expressions. Oh, that is excellent. It's amazing. It's the bee's knees.
If you say something is the bee's knees, what is it?
Okay, yeah, so the bee's knees, I do know.
Today's British English idiom of the day is the bee's knees.
Perhaps because it just sounds so quaint and dainty that it sounds like it came from a Jane Austen novel. Here's your tea, Miss Fanshawe, and I've taken the liberty to butter you a luscious morsel of Victoria sponge. Oh, Mr. Dashley, you are the bee's knees of gentlemanly conduct. You know, Miss Fanshawe, I've got an estate worth £50,000. Oh, I'm all a quiver. I'm still peckish. Meet me in the pantry at 4 o'clock. I wish to nibble on a crumpet. Mr. Dashley. Okay, enough of that. Yes, that might sound authentic, but the truth is that it's one of those American expressions from the jazz age. During the 1920s, there were many other expressions about animals and their things to express the idea of something was great. The cat's pyjamas, the monkey's eyebrows, the eel's elbows, the cat's whiskers. Très amusant, those jazz age people. All those expressions are American. And if you do want to say something typically British, you could try the dog's bollocks, which is to take on these expressions. And if you find this video, the dog's bollocks, then why not subscribe to the channel?
2.
To go Dutch. Now, if you don't know to go Dutch, it means that if a man and a woman go to the restaurant, each person pays their own share of the bill. So, for example, here's the bill. I'll get this. Are you sure? Relax, sweetheart. This one's on me. What? £60 for 2 portions of avocado toast and a bottle of San Pellegrino? Are they kidding? Shall we go Dutch? If you insist. Anyway, this one, the dictionary gets it wrong. None other than the Oxford English Dictionary. And they connect go Dutch to other phrases which have Dutch in them, largely due to the rivalry and enmity between the English and the Dutch in the 17th century, the period of the Anglo-Dutch Wars. This is not correct. In fact, it's utter nonsense. Won't get into too much detail because I talk about it much more in another video I made up here. Very briefly, in English, if you put Dutch before a phrase, it means that it's slightly different from the original. So, for example, Dutch courage is the courage you get from drinking alcohol. It's not real courage, it's a slightly fake courage, so it's called Dutch courage. And anyway, we're talking about go Dutch, which, as I said, is American, and it's got nothing to do with the Anglo-Dutch Wars. It has nothing to do with the conflict with the Dutch in New Amsterdam either.
First, there was an earlier expression, let's go Dutch treat, which means that everyone pays their own way for a meal or any form of entertainment. This was being used in the US around 1900. By the 1920s, the phrase had been shortened to just go Dutch, with a slightly more restricted meaning. But we don't see much evidence of its use in Britain until the 1940s.
That's 300 years after the Anglo-Dutch Wars. That's a long time to hold a grudge. So yeah, that's just, what can I say, nonsense. Anyway, one more for you, and again, it's something I've covered before, but I just wanted to show you that, yeah, it's American.
1.
So it's on the wagon, which just means to not drink alcohol, usually after a period of excessive drinking, that is. So, for example, Mr. Dashley, we're doing some tequila slammers on the veranda. Would you like to join us? Thank you, I'm on the wagon. I'll just have a barley water. So, to cover this briefly, as I said, I've talked about this before. So, according to some far-fetched stories, on the wagon originated in London, where condemned prisoners had one last drink before they were taken away by wagon to the gallows at Tyburn, where they were hanged. It's a good story, by the way. It's a great story, but it's not true. The truth is much simpler, and that is on wagon is American, and it originates from the temperance folk who pledged to renounce alcohol and get their drink from the water wagon instead. In fact, the expression was originally on the water wagon, but got shortened. So I'd just like to say a big thank you to America for providing such beautiful British expressions, and to you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. See you soon. Bye.